Welcome to the Brain Gain Youngstown Leadership Series podcast. Each week, we'll learn from leaders who are driving change and making an impact. Now here's your host, the CEO of the Youngstown Publishing Company, Jeff Leo Herman.
Bad things happen. There's pain, there's misery, there's despair. But it's what you do to get it right that matters. Okay, hey everyone, welcome to the podcast. That was my best Jocko Willink impersonation. If you don't know Jocko, just check him out on YouTube. You'll get the gist of his style and delivery right away. But I'm thrilled to share our guest today is Dan Fernback from Juggerbot 3D. He is a co-founder of Juggerbot 3D, and we learn about his entrepreneurial journey and his burning desire to get into business, and all about additive manufacturing too, and the big strides they're making. But we had a lot of fun with this conversation, got into Jocko, got into David Goggins, all the motivational tools and techniques and tactics that entrepreneurs use to stay motivated. We hear about how he joined the company. Timing wasn't his choice, but it worked out, right? So it's a really good conversation. And I do thank you for joining us today. So please welcome Dan Fernback. So here we are with Dan Fernback, not Daniel Fernback, and not Danny Fernback.
Any one of those will work, yeah.
Dan.
I've been called worse across the board.
Do we tell the story about your first job at signing up for your job application, what name you used?
Yeah. So I was told by a guy that has actually been a pretty good mentor to me. I was an intern at Delphi Packard, which is now active, and it was my junior year of college. And so they had a couple job openings that would have been around the same time that I would have been graduating from college. And so we're filling out job applications, we're figuring out what jobs would be a good fit for us. I was talking to this one guy, his name's Ray Blasco, and he's a Youngstown native. And he was going through the resumes, and for mine particularly, I was pretty happy because everything on there, he was like, this looks good, you formatted it nicely. There was one or two things he thought that I could add or change. And the one thing he was like really adamant about was like, don't put Danny on your resume because people will think you're still like a kid. Use Dan or Daniel, and that'll be it will be perceived more as like a man. So
right.
I was like 20 at that point in time. I'm like, yeah, I want to be a man. I'm a man.
Working at Delphi.
So it's been Dan, or in a lot of cases it's been Dan or Daniel, except for my family and my friends still mostly call me Danny, and my mom in particular, and now my wife, when they're mad at me, call me Daniel.
Oh yeah, okay.
So
we've heard that.
Yeah.
So if I'm walking down the street with you and someone throws a Danny at you, what's up, Danny? You go way back with them, right?
Most likely, yeah.
Okay.
Most likely.
Okay. So speaking of way back, when you were a kid, did you know when you were 6 that you wanted to work at Delphi? You wanted to be involved in engineering and manufacturing? What
I initially wanted to be when I was younger was a construction worker.
Oh.
Yeah. My dad was a construction worker, and he had an excavating business on the side, and I thought that was cool. He used to take me out as a kid when I was like 6 or 7. He had a backhoe that he would use on his job site, and so I was like probably the only 6 or 7-year-old at that point in time that was digging holes in people's backyards with a big piece of equipment like that. But I wanted to be a construction worker until like 7th or 8th grade. That was really what I wanted to do, which puzzled my parents. They were both kind of like, what do you mean you could be anything? You could be an astronaut, you could do whatever you want. I'm like, no, I want to be a construction worker. And a big part of that was, I like building things. It's fun it's really fulfilling to be, to put some time in to seeing things really come together, like tangibly, right? There's a sense of fulfillment in that. But I also, I think I saw from my dad taking pride in his work, and my mom taking pride in what she did as a big motivator for what I would want to do. So that was a part of it. It changed a little bit in like 7th or 8th grade.
I was going to say, what made, so it was just generally a construction worker, were big projects like carpentry, or are we talking?
Mostly, yeah. So my dad was a laborer, okay. But in he laid a lot of concrete. On the jobs that I would go on with him were primarily if he was doing, it was called Fernback excavating for a long time. So I'd go with him, and he was doing excavating work, so digging like basements and stuff like that with a backhoe, or he did a lot of concrete work. He did some roofing. He pretty much did whatever he had to do, building decks and stuff like that. So a lot of like woodworking type of work, but not like cabinet making, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But my grandfather, actually both my grandfathers, had garages with tools that were, woodworking tools since we were real little. So if we were in the summertime especially, me and my cousins would be at one of the grandparents' house, and we always find our way into the garage, and we would be in, hand tools and fasteners and stuff like that, and there'd be planks of wood nailed to every piece of the garage you could possibly find. So it wasn't always we usually got yelled at for it, but it was a lot of fun.
So there you go. There's direct exposure to building, to hands-on type of work. What happened, say, in that middle school environment? Did someone tuck you out of the trades and say, go to college instead? Or?
Kinda. I actually wanted to, at that point in time, I really started I knew like I wanted to have my own business, that I wanted to start my own business.
Okay.
More so than get an engineering. I knew I wanted to get an engineering like more in my junior year of college. I knew I wanted to still build things, but I was more focused on like wanting to have my own business, wanting to start something.
Right.
The whole transition into engineering really occurred more because I still like building things and I enjoyed math. Just to be, that was the thing. Hey, you can
first
go to
person
school
on
for
a podcast that's enjoyed math.
Oh yeah, okay, right on.
Yeah,
that was pretty much the gist of it. When I was in middle school, though, I had a chance to actually do some entrepreneurial things, which just kind of reinforced my favoritism towards that.
Yeah.
So like started off as like we lived in Cornersburg, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cornersburg, right down from Lanterman's Mill, and there was a Pizza Joe's that opened up, and like when they first opened up, they didn't have that many people there. Obviously, Pizza Joe's was still a good name at that point in time, but me and a friend, we would ride our bikes on there, and we would offer to either clean floors or fold pizza boxes in return for food.
Absolutely.
And that was one of the first things. I always was the kid that had a paper route when I was younger. Me and my sister had paper routes when we were younger. It was always, when it snowed, it was always exciting because you'd get up and go out and try to make a couple bucks by shoveling driveways, lemonade stands and stuff like that. It was fun.
Okay, so entrepreneurship in the blood.
Yeah.
So then taking the path, going through school, good at math, went to college, engineering. How did you end up at Delphi, right? So you had your first job out of school was like a big company job.
So I had an internship there first, and that's how it kind of spiraled into that. I had an internship in their validation and testing area, which is like a part of the design group. And since it was kind of right time, right place, that opportunity showed up, applied as a sophomore going to be a junior going to be a senior. So the summer after my junior year, and they had just started to rehire. So they were growing. We caught it at the right time. The wave was in our favor. And one thing led to another. Just try to do the best you can. Try to make a good impression where you could, and as opportunities came up, applied, and my name was one that got pulled for the job. So,
was there an adult in your life or some person you looked up to or aspired to be that kind of got you on that path?
Yeah, I mean, my parents have always been very much people I could always go back to and speak to and get direction from, and I'm very fortunate for that and grateful for that. I think that in that specific instance, again, Ray Blasco was a big help. Yeah. I didn't even work with Ray or for Ray in that point in time. He was just one of the guys that was there for about 30 years and just looking out for younger guys around the area that, his way of giving back. Right? Seeing who had opportunity, who showed some kind of potential, and trying to offer guidance in that way. So Ray was a big help with it. I mean, that's at that point in time, specifically for Delphi.
So then what led to Juggerbot 3D? So here, give us that background. A couple years, were you frustrated by kind of big company, or was this just the burning desire to get into your own business?
So I was more so the burning desire to start something cool.
Yeah.
So Juggerbot 3D manufactures industrial grade 3D printers right here in Youngstown, Ohio. And Zach DiVincenzo and I, we met at college. We both have very similar backgrounds in regards to entrepreneurship and, a desire to do something cool, build a team that does cool stuff, right? He comes from a family that, like my family, has a very blue-collar background, people that made stuff for a living. So I think that's really how we both ended up in the engineering space. And then 3D printing was another opportunity that just came up, kind of right time, right place. So 2012, we're both sophomores, and America Makes is announced to be located in Youngstown, Ohio. Right. So that was a big incentive for us to look more into the technology and to better understand what that meant for the future of manufacturing, what opportunities that really would bring up for guys like Zach and I. We also had a professor at that point in time, Darrell Wallace, Dr. Wallace, who was a huge advocate for manufacturing technologies and specifically additive manufacturing. So we got kind of firsthand a look at what the impact of 3D printing could be for the future of not just how we design and make products, but even how that could transform how businesses operate in the future.
Right.
And the last semester of my college career, me and Zach and then another friend of ours were like, hey, we all think this is something we want to do. We all want to try to figure out how we can start our own business in addition to getting full-time jobs, and 3D printing seems like it's really going to be the anchor for that. So at first it was a matter of how could we use 3D printing to make cool stuff. We figured out pretty quickly that the problem that needed to be solved was not necessarily what could 3D printing make, but what kind of 3D printers would need to be offered to fill a gap in the market.
Right, because at that time, right, we're talking the teens, right, the 2012 to 13, 14, 15.
Yep.
3D printing was more like maker-oriented, right, tinkering,
yes,
kind of hobbyist almost.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you guys are doing this at scale, right, and it's about prototyping to scale. So how did Juggerbot get into the picture? Like how it looks today, how did you get there? You're building like massive installations.
Yeah, 6 years of a lot of work.
Yeah.
But the vision for it, I think, is really a mixture of our work experiences and our teachings at that point in time. We were fortunate to kind of get on the ground level of the 3D printing efforts in Youngstown, right? Again, right time, right place, and just being open to the opportunity. But Zach, myself, and then Jim, who's our third partner, we all were involved in 3D printing to some extent when YSU was just getting a part of it. So when the first printers were purchased and installed, we were the first like nerds to be like, yeah, let's figure it out. Let's start tinkering with them. And so we had our fun and learned how to learn more about the technology just kind of like on the job, right? But we had guys like Darrell that were sharing with us what could happen and how things could happen, what it meant for not only prototyping purposes, but how it could empower the everyday like tradesman. Mm-hmm. Right, what it meant for manufacturers in the future and how businesses could be transformed based off of the capabilities that 3D printing offered at that point in time. So that was really for us the big goal. I mean, we've failed a lot, so part of the progress we've been able to make has been just learning from what we haven't accomplished the first time around.
Did you guys set out to build these big machines, or was it? Like, how did you get inspired to do this? Was it somebody was it market studies? Was it experience? Was it just, someone at YBI or YSU said, we need X, go do it?
Yeah, it started off really, we actually started building smaller machines first. And again, a big part of it was addressing functionality of parts. So in our space, applications drive materials, and materials from there will drive what process you use. The initial scope for what we wanted...
well, let me slow that down a second. Applications drive materials, materials drive process. So meaning the end use determines what materials, meaning the input, right? The filament.
Yep.
Right?
Pellets, there you go.
Pellets, yeah. Okay, so just trying to get this into
metals,
terms.
plastics, right.
Yeah. So it's literally when you say material, it's a very specific term in 3D manufacturing.
Correct.
Okay. So, and there's a wide range of materials available to work with.
Correct. The application will drive the specific type of material, being a thermoplastic, a thermoset, a metal, a ceramic. Even within that, is it a flexible thermoplastic? Is it a rigid thermoplastic? Whatever it may be, which will then, with each material, there are only so many different ways to produce a part with it, right? Whether it's available in pellet form or filament form or powder form or whatever have you, right? A liquid resin being a big one. And then from there, you can kind of figure out what is the best fit. So functionality was a lot of the time, initially was, we want to build machines that, again, going back to that empowered thing, empower the everyday engineer, and a big part of that was being able to help them build more functional parts. So being able to use higher performing material. But our first machine was small. It was just something that could fit on this table.
Wow.
Yep. And we always had in our roadmap that we wanted to build bigger machines, and we conceived different ways that you could do that, like pellet extrusion, different technologies that could come into factor. We've got way more of those that have been put into the waste bin than have actually been stuck on a whiteboard. Like, we're going to keep trying to do this, but just trying to stay on top of the changes and challenges in the market, and learning from the different partners that we've been able to put into place is really how we continue to build out and really continue to form the scope of the product that we offer.
Okay, and so when there's three of you to start, how long? Give us the quick sketch of it from 3 to 5 to 10 to what did it take to kind of build it?
So we actually went from 3 to 4 to 3.
Okay.
Yeah. So we went from 3 to 4. We added an intern that he's still with us today. He's a really solid guy, Brian Zellers. He's our electrical engineer. And then shortly after, that's when Jim just was like, "Hey, I'm seeing something different. I want to do something different." And he decided to exit the company, and from what I've read and researched, the most platonic way you possibly can. Like, it was really like a friendly, like, pardoning, like, "Hey, this just isn't fitting your interest anymore. He's doing great now. He's in Cleveland. He's got a good job. He's from what I understand, he's working out a lot, so he's doing just fine." But that renewed 3. So me, Zach, and Brian was probably about 12 months in the works before we started adding more people. So it was, to note it, Brian was an intern, and then me and Zach were still doing it in our night and weekend gigs. So nobody full-time.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody full-time. This is probably like 2016, moving into 2017. And then in 2017, after we had launched we were in beta testing with our first small product, right? We won an award with the state of Ohio. We submitted a proposal to use 3D scanning, 3D modeling, and 3D printing to produce prosthetic and orthotic devices. And we were awarded that, which enabled us to move Zach in full-time to finish the completion of the design for that initial product. We were able to get more hours for Brian, and we actually took over. We won 2 more projects, one of which was a large format machine.
Huh.
Yeah, so it had a build volume of 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet for a foundry that's just about 30 minutes south of here. That was really our first step into the larger format space.
Wow. So it sounds like, this was bootstrapping in the purest sense.
Yeah,
so
for the most part, definitely.
And so it was a process of just going through, looking for opportunities, discovering projects, right? Were you submitting for grants or building?
Kind of both ways. So again, this is the 2017 point. We won a state-funded, which it's an AMP award. I believe would be considered a grant. It's a competitive grant. You have to qualify in a lot of different ways. But as a small manufacturer for us, we were able to make that work with the right partners in place. So we were partnered with a materials company out of Toledo. They call it a central fabricator in Boardman that makes prosthetic and orthotic devices that we partner with, and then Mercy Health was a big partner in that. The other 2 awards were both machine sales to local manufacturers, companies that were like, I see the opportunity for it. The one guy was saying, I just want to be able to print big parts.
Yeah.
That was, just kind of them selling the dream, selling our team, our capabilities, and them buying into it.
So when did you start full-time then?
I went full-time in May of 2019. Yeah.
So not too long ago.
Not too long ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you see, the entrepreneurial experience, what was it like when what was that decision that you made, or that feeling when you said, I'm going full-time?
Yeah.
I'm all in.
I kind of got it made for me a little bit, to be honest with you.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, it absolutely worked out for me. So at that point in time, they were downsizing at Aptiv. And we were actually looking to hire people at Juggerbot, but we needed we needed people to do design work. And my job is primarily on the sales and marketing side. I'm more on the commercial side. So we had a lot of irons in the fire, but they all required much more emphasis on product development than anything else. So we had 2 job openings, both for mechanical engineers. And the one day I got, basically there was right before lunch. So let me backtrack a little bit. I'm okay saying this now because I don't work there anymore.
Yeah.
My daily schedule for 3 or 4 days of the week, I'd wake up at like 5:30 and I'd start working on Juggernaut stuff until about like 7:30. And then I'd go to Aptiv and I'd be at Aptiv until, 5:30 at night. But I'd be working until like noon, and then I'd go to the Starbucks down the street, open up my computer, answer emails, and do it until like 1, and then I'd go back. So I'm getting ready to go to Starbucks. It's like 12 o'clock, and my supervisor is like, "Hey, Dan, you got a minute?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Can you meet me in the conference room?"
Uh-oh.
I was like, "Do I need my computer or anything?" He's like, "Nah, probably not." I'm like, "Okay, that's bad. That's not a good thing." So I walked in there. There's already a computer set up, but there's nobody there. And he walks in. He's a great guy. His name's Greg. I'm like, "Hey, Greg, I think somebody's already in here." He's like, "Oh, yeah, I know. I'll be right back." And he walked out. I'm like, all right, that's one of 2 things is happening. I'm either, there was another job that was open that they were, that I had some interest in that they had talked to me about. I'm like, they're either going to talk to me about this job, like the application, or I'm getting let go. Like one of the 2 things is happening. And sure enough, walks in, and they were real nice about it. It wasn't like a personal thing. They're just like, "We're downsizing. It's happening across the board." There had been, for days before that, people getting let go. And they're like, "So, your name's one on the list." I'm like, "Okay, well, hey, thanks for the opportunity. It's been real." It was there for 5 years almost.
Wow.
So, yeah, 4 or 5 years. And it was a great experience. But at that point in time, like, because of things were going on here at Juggernaut, we were in the position we were in, I felt like that was kind of fate's way of being like, "Dude, it's time to go jump, it's time to go." So, and I'm just fortunate that we had the resources at that point in time to support it.
So you really had 2 plan A's going, not plan A, plan B. So Juggernaut wasn't plan B. It was kind of,
It's always going.
It's some way, shape, or form, it was going to be a plan A. It's just that the timing may or may not have been what you wanted, but it quickly became plan A.
Yeah, in hindsight, it was the best thing that could have happened to me at that point in time.
It's good.
Yeah.
I've heard that. In situations where that's a tough situation, it's uncomfortable, but in hindsight, it's often the best thing.
Right. Yeah.
Now, what did you learn from that experience? So, you guys have grown quite a bit over the past, many years, but just more recently, you really have punched on the accelerator.
Yeah.
Is there a leadership style or philosophy you use at Juggernaut that is in spite of what you learned at a big company, or because of what you learned at a big company?
I think there's both. You learn, I think with bigger companies, you have a lot of people who want to be leaders that are more managers.
Yeah.
So like they're not, I think, and then they have a lot of people who don't have the title that are great leaders, if that makes sense.
It does.
So a lot of it by action, and at least in my opinion, from what affects me, like people that I gravitate towards more for leaders are people who lead by action versus, whatever the title is. And so with a small company, you don't have the security to be able to kind of hide off in the corner or to stand behind your title. You have to produce, you have to show up, and I think that's something where there were certain folks at Delphi that maybe didn't have the title that were really great leaders, just by doing the best they could for the teams around them and by really caring for the teams that they're working for. That I think you can pull into a smaller business for that.
And those are things like any specific examples?
I think the no job is too small mentality is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's at the end of the day, I think it's important to focus on meeting the objective and caring less about how it gets there.
Right.
Which is hard sometimes when you are only one part of a longer chain that has to get a bigger team that has to accomplish a specific goal. But when there's a smaller group and you have a little bit more understanding and appreciation for what everybody has to do to get the job done, you do the best you can together.
Right. Is there what tactic? What was the way in which that was conveyed? No job is too small. Was it literally just people saying, "Look, this is a chain, and if this link is not connected, this isn't going to happen"?
Yeah, Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. We had, there was a couple projects. One big project that I worked on was it was a cost improvement project that we were pitching for a couple $1 million to put a new extrusion line in a facility in Warren, Ohio that had really not gotten that much love in what seemed to be a long time. So it was kind of a big deal. We were all excited about it. It was going to be a great thing for the company. It was going to be a great thing for the plant in Warren. It would have been a big win all around. And there's a couple guys who were senior engineers on the materials side, in the materials team, that they had a stake in what was going on, but they definitely showed going above and beyond to make sure that the whole interdepartmental team that was really the ground floor of that project, that they were getting what they needed in a timely fashion. Mm-hmm. Everything from making sure that costing and formulas were being presented in a timely fashion to, at some point in time, picking up the phone and making calls that weren't really under their jurisdiction. It wasn't really a part of their responsibilities, but just, hey, it needs to be done, let's get it done so that we can go forward. And that was a really successful project for us.
So then, speaking of picking up the phone, I can't help but jump back a little bit. So that day of reckoning, when they said, "Hey, Dan,
yeah,
we got a part company here," did you? Who was the first person you called when you walked out of the parking lot?
Zach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you say it's on?
I was like, dude, I know we're looking for mechanical engineers, but I have a couple different options here. I don't want to go back to. I don't want to look for another job, and I don't want to take the other job that they're going to offer me. I want to go full time.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we can make this work, but obviously this is a team effort.
Right.
And he was like, I think the first response was, "Damn," and then after that he's like, "All right, well, hey, let's figure it out. Are you coming to the office right now?" It was like probably 2 p.m. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm gonna go home and tell Gab first. Gabby, my wife. I'm like, I'm gonna go talk to her.
That's good.
But
this is not a test.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we won't let her listen to this part. But
I mean, she knows.
Yeah.
But I was like, this is I was like, I'm gonna talk to her first. I'm gonna get things settled out, and then I can come in tonight, or at the very least, I'll be there first thing in the morning, so we'll have a chance to talk about it then. And sure enough, I think that night I went home and just kind of told Gab and just kind of settled in and decompressed.
Yeah.
Had a chance to not make any emotional decisions and not do anything. I wasn't truthfully, I wasn't sad. I was more excited. I was kind of stoked.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
Right.
But took a second just to come back down to reality. Next morning went in, and sure enough, it was probably 7 o'clock in the morning. Me and Zach were sitting down on the table and just working through the logistics of it.
That's fantastic. So we want to shift gears and talk about leadership mistakes that you've made along the way. But before that, we're going to take a minute to thank our sponsors.
Sounds good.
The Brain Gain is a collaborative effort, and we'd like to thank the headlining members of the coalition, including Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moransky Companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Also included are Farmers Bank Group, Youngstown State University, Eastern Gateway Community College, the DeBartolo Corporation, Cortland Bank, MS Consultants, and 898 Marketing.
All right, Dan, what mistakes have you made in building Juggernaut?
So there's a couple that are probably worth noting. One of which I don't know if it's necessarily a leadership mistake, but it's definitely a mistake in working with people.
It's instructive. Yeah.
It's instructive, yeah. So we are, as we've discussed in the past for other reasons, Jeff, we're building out a distribution network, right? So in almost every case, we're talking to people who are, they're smaller, family-owned businesses, where the people that we're talking to have been in business for 30 or 40 years. They know so much more than we do about the space that we're going into. We are just the technology experts.
Right.
And we know way more about that, but that's our lane.
Right.
Right. So one mistake that we made when we first started interviewing distributors, which is thinking back, mistakes we've made with other people as well, or at least I've made with other people, is trying to tell them what they should do or what we need them to do without really knowing.
Okay.
Now the conversation is a little bit more transparent, a little bit more upfront to say, we've never set up a distribution agreement before or distribution network. We kind of have an idea of what we want and why we want it. And we've done our research and spent our time to vet out what we think is the right fit. And I have never had, of the dozen conversations I've had with different distributors, nobody has ever seen that as a disrespectful or, I think more importantly, an immature remark. Like, on the contrary, I think coming in to say, this is what we want you to do, they're like, this is immature.
Man.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you're being transparent or authentic and just saying, we have an intent and an interest, and we've done our homework, but let's collaborate to get this done.
Exactly.
And it takes, you have to be bold and brash to be an entrepreneur, but I think that only gets you so far, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you can only put your head down and run through so many walls before you run into cement. Yep.
So then is the collaborative spirit more what you're going for these days?
Absolutely. Well, in that case, especially in that case. Obviously, we're still not going to make a decision that's not the right fit for us.
Yeah.
But I think a part of that is finding the win-win for both parties.
Speaking of collaboration, great involvement with YSU. I've already heard a professor was instrumental in your early development, conceptualizing. YBI, so Youngstown Business Incubator, what role has YBI played in Juggerbots?
We would not be where we're at today without the Youngstown Business Incubator. So we started off as, in 2014, a couple of college kids with an idea. Mm-hmm. And so from our initial pitch on, they've been really helpful in just preparing us to continue to grow into where they could help us mitigate mistakes. You think you have a good idea. You think you're smart when you graduate. I think everybody that's probably in their early 20s has kind of a chip on their shoulder. It's a pretty normal thing. And they really forced us to identify the actual problem that needed to be solved, which really helped us. We talked a little about the trajectory of our development efforts. That was really what set the tone for us. Was, we were kind of right in our initial hypothesis, but it was confirmed and refined after months and months and months of surveying the landscape. Honestly, just picking up the phone and calling different manufacturers and getting a feel for what's out there. And then, they have put us in touch, and because of what they're doing, because of their efforts in specifically advanced manufacturing, the weight that comes with our name being from here is definitely taken seriously.
So if you're at a conference and you say Juggerbot from Youngstown, it's not who, but it's
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. They may not always know, but now they're starting. Juggerbot is, proud to say, becoming a more well-known name in this space. But if they don't know who we are, they definitely know who Youngstown is.
So how do we get more of that, right? What does this region need from a leadership standpoint? How do we get more entrepreneurs like you and Zach building companies? Are there any barriers in your way to doing this?
I think there's always going to be barriers to doing stuff that matters, right? Nothing that's going to. The thing is, there's a saying in there somewhere that the things that are worth having are worth fighting for.
Right.
But one thing that I think Zach would definitely agree is we've always managed to find opportunity. Right. So I think being able to, from a leadership perspective, you definitely need like that one-on-one leadership that is like mentoring, mm-hmm. right? That helps develop specific people or specific traits in people. And then kind of like a more macro scale, there's just a matter of being able to create opportunities for the people that are here, the people that want to seek them out. The fact of overcoming challenges is just something that you accept. Right. Being an entrepreneur, right? You just take that on. And not even people in their regular jobs, right? In your normal life, you just come across that. You can't really shy away from adversity in some cases, but definitely just being able to promote more opportunity for stuff like this.
So are you bullish on the future of additive, and specifically even here more so in the Youngstown market? Yeah,
I am very optimistic about where additive is going to go on a global scale, and I'm extremely optimistic and notably biased about how big a role Northeast Ohio is going to play in the widespread adoption.
Right. I'm sure a lot of people are curious. A lot of what we hear, are they press releases, or is it legit? And you're sitting here, and I've been to on the floor, and I've seen the tradesmen of all shapes and sizes.
Yep.
They are fully functioning operational machines. It is not a press release.
Yeah.
They're very real.
We do tangible stuff.
Yeah, right. So where do you see the future of Juggerbot? Are you going to grow out of the space you're in right now over in the old Vindicator building?
Yeah, I mean, we had a really strong end of this year. So we managed to lock in a couple more machine sales. We have a couple projects that we were awarded that'll help with our 2021 and beyond development efforts. And while this year's been full of challenges for everybody, we've still managed to grow to the point where we could be growing outside of that area like in the next 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're hoping that in Q1 we're going to be able to onboard a couple more heads, bring on a couple more people full time. We have, as I mentioned with the distributors, the commercial side of our business is heading in the direction we want it to head. So a lot of the seeds we've planted in the past 6 years are budding, and it's just time to execute. The goal for Juggernaut ultimately is the premier manufacturer of industrial grade 3D printers across the globe.
So that the global
space. We want the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear. Do you, being a passionate, hands-on person, engineer, big company to Juggernaut, is there, have you just kind of learn every single day? Are there books that you've read, leadership books, or have you found yourself like, holy cow, I'm the co-founder of a company that's really growing. How do I handle that? Do you pinch yourself sometimes?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah. So I like to read, and I wish I spent more time reading. I don't allocate as much time on a regular basis to reading as I probably should. But from a leadership perspective, I'm sure you've heard of Jocko Willink.
Oh yeah.
He's got a couple books that have come out in the past like 3 or 4 years, and I really enjoy those. I've got a book on culture that I
think I have a Jocko book right behind me. Yeah.
Which one? Extreme Ownership?
Extreme Ownership was good, yeah.
Extreme Ownership is real good, yeah.
I work out the Jocko.
Do you?
Like if this morning it was 5 and I got up, I was like, oh man. I just didn't feel like it, so I put him and David Goggins on.
There you go.
And I got my ass up.
Yep. Oh, Goggins, the Can't Hurt Me book. Have you read that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's another good one there. But that's sometimes on especially if it's on a weekend, I'm like, I'm gonna wake up early and my alarm goes off at whatever time, and I turn it off and I go to sleep, and you wake up and do you have an Instagram?
Yeah.
Do you follow Jocko?
On occasion. I'm not on Instagram much.
He's always posting pictures of his watch.
4 a.m.
Yeah, all the time. And nothing makes
sweat.
Nothing makes you feel more guilty than when you turn your alarm off and wake up and that dude on a Saturday is up at 4:30 doing whatever he's doing.
Oh yeah. We could do our best, Jocko and what's his guy's name on the podcast?
Echo Charles.
Echo Charles, yeah. Jocko leans in and he. It was a cold, dark day.
Yeah.
Sitting here with Dan at Juggernaut, but we persevered.
We just need a little bit more diameter on our biceps
to beef up a little bit and get a little more. All right. Well, that was a fun departure. But so the leadership books, you were rounding out. So you had Extreme Ownership, which agree, great book.
There is a book called 0 to 1 that is not really a leadership book.
Peter Thiel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not really a leadership book as much as it's like a startup book.
Ideation, yeah.
Yeah, there's hints of that in there. And then again, there's a book about culture, 2 books about culture I just got from a friend of mine. His name's Joe Straczynski, that I'm really interested in reading. I honestly don't remember who the authors of those 2 books are, but that I think culture and good leadership kind of go hand in hand.
So there's just a culture that's been developed simply by who you guys are. But do you explicitly work on that culture? Are you mindful of the culture we're building, or as a small company, like many small companies, it's just a function of who the people are without intention?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. It's something that Zach and I talk about a lot. Building the company culture in a way that we want the company culture to be, like that we believe is healthy.
That's awesome.
Is something that we have emphasized ourselves, and we also have a couple advisors that have instilled that in us, right?
Yeah.
We've also been fortunate because the team that we have is just a solid group of people.
Oh yeah.
And not just like our direct, like the full-time employees, but the
partners and
the people from the incubator that work with us, our contractors that we work with, our vendors and customers alike. We just are very fortunate to be surrounded by awesome people.
That's true. Your culture goes well beyond the 4 walls of Juggernaut, right? I mean, it literally, like you said, all the people you work with, all the partners and the vendors and the customers.
Definitely.
So that's good. So many small businesses don't take the time to talk explicitly about culture. So the fact that you're doing it right now is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's good. Well, do you have a challenge out to our audience? Because I know you're busy and we have a webinar coming up, right? So you and I are going to do a webinar.
Yep.
What's the webinar called, Dan?
The 3D Printing Materials Roundup.
3D Printing Materials Roundup. So it's going to be super cool.
Yeah, it's going to be very insightful.
So that being said, what challenge would you offer to our audience out there? Entrepreneurs, right? So there's probably someone at YSU right now who has a burning desire to start a business. If they're smart, they'll do it in additive, right? Because there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
So what would you challenge them to do? How to get started?
I think the biggest first step for most people that everybody can do and most people don't is to take that first step. And I think that has to do with what we would call like a more formal, like a pitch, but doesn't necessarily have to be. It's just to talk about an idea with somebody. Doesn't matter who it is. It can be before any of us pitched this stuff to the incubator or to talk about it with the folks from YSU. We were talking amongst ourselves as friends, like just a couple of dudes in engineering, going to school for engineering that saw a overlap in what they could do. And then we talked about with our families and that. Talking about it, it's not. I don't know if it's necessarily like willing it in or speaking it into existence, but it definitely starts to put you on track for making something real.
Right.
So, and it's hard about it. I think people, you tend to overcome a lot of the reservations you have about moving forward with a plan or a concept after you started talking about it with people. And I think part of it is you don't want to come off too bullish. You don't want to come off stupid.
Right.
And 9 times out of 10, nobody with the people that are going to think that it's either you're overly ambitious or it's stupid or naive for you to say it are people that are probably too scared to do it for themselves.
Right.
So talking about it will, help you refine a little bit, help you build your own confidence up, and then just be more comfortable with where you're going.
There's a dream phase, and then there's a design phase, right? And then there's a do phase, and a lot of people dream, some design, very few do.
Right.
Right. So you guys are doing it.
That's the goal.
Every day.
Every day.
Right.
Every day.
Well, Dan, this has been great. Appreciate your time here on the Brain Gain podcast. You and Zach are a great shining example of more of what we need here in this market. Those are entrepreneurs with a passion and desire to dominate globally, right?
Thank you.
Global domination.
Global domination.
All right.
Domination.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Before we go, I'd like to thank members of the Brain Gain Coalition, especially our great sponsors. Without them, none of this would be possible. So a big thank you goes to Sweeney Chevrolet Buick GMC, the Moransky Companies, and the Mahoning Valley Manufacturers Coalition. Thanks so much for their support. And also, please follow, like, and subscribe to this series on your favorite podcast player. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn, one of my favorite places. You can find me over there at Jeff Leo Herman and send me a message. I will see you next time.
I'm growing up in this life, and to the human that I need to be, I know that I am not alone. I'm brave, I got what it takes, I am a warrior.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for notifications. And also make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For all of your business news, visit businessjournaldaily.com. For all of your arts and entertainment news, go to afterhoursyoungstown.com.